Hi, Dennis from Ecuador. Wisconsin.
Hills of Wisconsin, so beautiful.
Kim, I think you're getting help. Kim's saying it does not allow me to switch to phone. Yeah, look at the email invitation, Kim. Good. Vancouver Island, California,
What's the
LA.
weather like on Vancouver Island now, I wonder?
Yeah.
Another gorgeous place to visit.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Haven't been there either. Florida.
Columbia. Florida, boy, good time to be in Florida.
It's going to warm up here. It's going to warm up here in Minnesota.
It's going to.
Like 60. We're going to be like at 60 by Saturday. The snow is going to be gone.
It's from 26 to 29 right now.
I know. It's not super balmy. It looks beautiful out. It's really, sunny blue skies here too.
Yeah, it's pretty on the white snow. Yeah.
Yes, we hope everyone is doing well. Any fun things you did over the weekend? Anyone? I was sharing just that we had a nice Saturday and a snowy Sunday. So got the outdoor activities done on Saturday, which was nice with my kids and the egg hunting and stuff. Did a fun scavenger hunt. Got them to burn off some energy. Sailing in Florida, really? Like right now? You're sailing right now?
I like to spend time on the Grand Cayman, and Cayman is really locked down right now. You can't get on the island, you can't get off the island. But know, they're even arresting people who go out in the sea and go out fishing in their little boat.
Really?
Why on earth are you going to arrest somebody who's out there on their surfboard or something? They're far away.
They're far away from people, so I would think that would be
right.
Yeah. Wow.
It's kind of mean about it, I think. But anyway, I'd risk getting arrested and going out if I were down there. Poland, all right.
Make sure if on your chat panel that you have it switched from to all panelists and attendees, just so when you're sending a chat that it goes to everybody. So we do have chat, we have open chat. We encourage everyone to use that today. We'll be addressing your questions as they come in throughout the hour and possibly hour, I guess. Might not be an hour today. Might get through this fast.
Wisteria is growing well enough to take over a fence. Man, we work so hard to try to get our wisteria to grow. It does okay some of the time, but I love it. Fantastic.
All right.
India, cool. Well, probably not cool. It's probably not.
I got about maybe another minute. We'll give it. Oh, it's cold and snowing in Detroit.
Oh.
It's 12 o'clock.
Oh, it's 12 o'clock.
Oh, that's my computer.
Is that your computer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get going here. Should we just go to the next slide? We just have these are a couple webinars we have coming up. We'll be shooting some links in the chat just in case you want to register for those. We'll send some more information out on those too after the webinars. So next week's is on the Learning Ecosystem Canvas, and then the week following, Selective Fidelity in Immersive Learning Systems. Again, my name is Carrie Zenz. I'm with Allen Interactions. I'm just doing the intro today, and I'll be introducing our experts here today to talk about better instructional strategies. We want to have a lively discussion. Just please make sure that your panel is set to all panelists and attendees in the chat dropdown. We've already done the second thing there. We've been sharing about where we're from, what we've had going on in our lives with all the change. Twitter, that is our handle at Custom eLearning, and those are the hashtags that you can use today. Allen Webinar and Better Instructional Strategies. So we'll be tweeting. So if you want to share anything from today, please feel free to do so. We encourage it. And then I'm just gonna start the introduction here quick. Just wanted to say, you know, better is something we all strive for in some facet of our lives. We seek improvement and look for more efficient, effective ways of doing things or achieving certain goals. And in this current landscape that is plagued with uncertainty and forced change, adaptation is more critical than ever. So I think we're in for a real treat today with who we have here to speak on building and learning experiences that achieve what matters, long-term retention, actual behavioral change, and positive business impact. Dr. Michael Allen is the founder and CEO of Allen Interactions and a pioneer of the e-learning industry. He has more than 45 years of professional, academic, and corporate experience in teaching, developing, and marketing learning performance support systems. He also created advanced design and development approaches that are used at Allen Interactions, including CCF-based design and the SAM process for agile-based collaborative development. He has written 8 books on effective learning design and development, and he has also received numerous awards and recognition for his work. And he's a sought after conference speaker. Christopher Allen is the Chief Strategy Officer at Allen Interactions with a primary role of focusing on developing tools and technologies that enable organizations to prioritize and prescribe the best treatments to achieve business outcomes. He is a sought after authoring technology, instructional design, and agile speaker and trainer with more than a decade of experience in developing cutting-edge digital products and services. I want to remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded and we will be sending out the recording link. Please, any questions you have throughout the next time, our time together, please send those in chat. We'll be addressing those as we go, and I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Michael Allen now.
Well, good day, whether it's morning, afternoon, night, where you are. It's wonderful to have a global audience. We're just so humbled and thankful of the lots of people registered for this. So I'm delighted to share some thoughts that I just will hopefully be helpful to people. As Carrie said, I've been working in the field for a long time, and it's fascinating to me how sometimes beginners in this field do extraordinarily wonderful things, and people like me who have been in the field for a long time do kind of ho-hum things, you know. So it doesn't really matter if you've been here for a long time or you're just new to the field. It's important to think like a learner when you're designing, not like the subject matter expert that knows everything, not really like a researcher, but what kind of experience would you want? I think that's kind of the #1 criterion for designing, not to get too academic about it. And so for those of you who have followed my books and presentations, you know, I'm always striving for ways to simplify what we do, to make a better product, to make it faster, to make it easier to build, but always to not waste a learner's time, because they can't get their time back. Once they're working with our instructional materials, they're entrusting us to use their time really well. And if we waste their time, there's just no way for them to go to the service counter and say, I'd like you to return my time to me. That really wasn't worth anything. So we're going to talk about strategies and matching strategies. Christopher, would you advance this thing? Thank you very much. Wanted to make sure it was still working. I was about to close up the webinar and thank everyone, right? So it's fun, by the way, working with my son. I'm so proud of him, and he has really, in his own right, become quite an expert in the field. As has my daughter, by the way, I should mention. So it's really a dedication, and I think of all of our employees to Down Interactions as part of the family, because you just wouldn't find more dedicated people anywhere in the world who really care about not only developing really, really great learning programs for people, but also sharing what they've learned about how to do that with everybody else, because we want everybody producing materials and experiences that benefit all the learners. So if you'd keep advancing for me a little bit.
Yeah,
thank
for
you.
Sure.
So I want to make them simple as possible, but as Einstein says, as simple as possible, but not too simple. And I got to say, just throwing out a lot of content all the time, maybe putting a little quiz at the end is too simple. It doesn't really help people. Now, if that's all they need, then that's all you should give them. But as I like to say, if just presenting information were sufficient, we wouldn't need schools, right? We just have libraries and online material and learn it. That's not enough. It's not enough. And when I'm talking to you from my home, and I'm probably talking to you in yours as well, when we're all distributed, excuse me, as we are, it's really valuable to make use of the technology to do the things it can do well, not try to make it do things it does not do well, but match the strategy to the need. And so that's really the basic theme of today's conversation. And you make a strategy better by fitting it to the targeted outcome, and you make it bad, the same strategy, bad by not focusing it or matching it, I should say, matching it to the outcome you're looking for. So we really, really need to get these things connected, and they often, unfortunately, aren't. Carrie, John Walton has raised his hand. If you'll check, see if there's something we should address.
Yes, I will check with him.
Yeah, thanks. I'll keep going until you flag me down here a little bit. So I also want to make it easier. So there's a trick that I've been using literally for decades that I call designing backwards, that makes things so much easier than the way that people generally approach this. It's much of what I'm presenting today flies in the face of what I was taught when I was in graduate school. But after applying and working on so many projects and so much content, you start to learn that maybe all those things that you learned in school were more theoretically appealing than in practice. And so one of the things that I want to talk with you about is designing backwards, which is the opposite of what your clients or your subject matter experts or whoever you're working with, if you're the designer, are going to want to do. They're going to want to start with the basics. And we're not going to want to do that. So we'll talk about that and how it makes things easier for you and actually for them and everybody else. And then, of course, we want it to be a smart design, a smart approach. There are many, many different things you can do. And so there are some really solid guidelines out there, and we're going to share those resources with you and some of our own guidelines. And as I often say, none of these designs, instructional approaches are copyrighted or patented or anything of that sort. So if you see one that really works, including all of the stuff that we do, and we have a lot of our projects online at their website, and you can take a look at them. We'd like to have hundreds of more of them, but lots of times our clients say, no, you can't share the training you did for us. It's our competitive advantage. Why would we not? So, okay. But we do get options to put things out there. And so if you see something you like and it works for you, you can just copy it. I'd encourage you to, and from others as well. And it's a kind of a smart thing to do. So I want to pause just for a minute because, first of all, I haven't let Christopher say anything, and I sure want him to. But we came across a very interesting blog recently that talked about how to do better webinars. And one of the things they said is, why are they an hour long? Why do they all seem to be an hour long? If 10 minutes is enough, just make it 10 minutes, you know? If you need 40 minutes, make it 40 minutes. And so we got to talking about that, and we thought, gee, we ought to put the control in the hands of you folks. Again, thinking about the learner or the other side. What would you like? You'd like to be in control. Would you like to see more of this? Would you like to see less of that? You won't hurt our feelings. Like to see some other things. And so throughout, we're going to ask some polls of what you would like us to do next. And we will do our best. Now, this is the problem. Digitally, we could respond to everybody individually. Here we're doing something that's very much like a classroom, and that's that we're asking what's the consensus. So Christopher and Rich, would you like to give us a poll? And
sure.
Christopher, you talk through it a bit.
Yeah, so our first poll question is, how long would you like to go for it today? And so we got a couple options. We could go really short, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Surprise me, which isn't necessarily between 30 or 38 minutes, and 45 minutes. And we'll give it just a few minutes more.
I think this is really fun. I had no idea what you'd all say, especially after I just delivered a whole diatribe. Enough of that, please.
If you wait long enough, we have another poll question that just says, please stop.
Trying to switch on your mic and shut it off.
All right. So it looks like we're shooting for longer than 38 or 30 minutes.
Or a surprising amount.
Or something surprising. I like that most people chose.
Next was 45 right in there. Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, again, we are going to do everything we possibly can not to waste your time. I would like so much for you to walk away with at least one thing that you can't wait to tell somebody you work with, you know, and I hope it's more than one. So we're going to do our best. Okay.
Yeah. So one other thing that I'll add is, when we were putting together material for this particular webinar, I was thinking about some of the more recent things that you've presented on that seem to be real favorites with the audience, and also give us an opportunity to talk and answer lots of different questions, because I think each one of these kind of main principles has an opportunity to both expand into showing some demonstrations and talking further about real pertinent topics. So I'm excited to see where this goes today.
Okay. Well, so another, you know, I have all these little adages. When you get to be 73 years old, you can't escape having adages. And one of them is that success, in my view, always comes from one thing. It always comes from doing the right thing at the right time. You know, and whether it's you're trying to get healthier, it means you have to do the right thing at the right time. If you want your leadership team to work together better, it's those people doing the right thing at the right time. If you want fewer recalls on your product, making it better, doing things at the right time. So, you know, in my trying to simplify the amazing complexity of the world, as I'm always trying to do, this is one of those things that I really believe in, that success really comes from something we can address. We can get right at it. Now, doing the right thing the right time have a lot of elements to it. You know, it's a lot about motivation. It's about capability. It's about being able to problem solve, understand what's the right thing at the right time, and so forth. But a lot of that falls right in the lap of the work that we do to help educate and train people. So, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So,
there was a comment, Michael, from Barbara.
Yes.
She said, adding humor or shock items helps learners remember the content.
It does. It sure does. So I might have a chance to tell my joke of the day if it comes up in one of those.
Yeah.
I'm just itching to share it.
I know.
It's a dumb joke, but anyway. Boy, I love humor, and I have to respond to that and tell you that some years ago we were working on a project for a company. I won't share the name because of what I'm going to tell you about them, and I was working with the C-suite there, and they're telling them some of the really great things we could do to help their performance improve, and we showed them some prototypes of what we were thinking, and we had humor in it. And everybody in the room laughed pretty much when we showed it. But then the CEO raised his hand, stopped a minute. He said, wait a minute. Our people really don't appreciate humor. And I thought, that's got to be a joke, right? He was dead serious. He said, I don't want humor in our training program. It just doesn't go there. And so we took it out. there wasn't any humor in it, but I think maybe that guy needs counseling. I don't know. Anyway, people do appreciate humor, not humor that wastes time, and doesn't appeal broadly. Of course, you know, humor is a kind of an individual judgment, but so it can be tricky. It can be tricky to do, but I agree with that notion.
Yeah, Maura commented and said she had to recently take humor out of a recent project.
So we're not alone in that.
You're not
experience.
alone.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people like spicy food and some don't, right? So.
Right.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so let's talk about what are the typical instructional strategies we see out there. And in my simplification of the world, I'm going to say there are basically 3 buckets of desired outcomes. The simplest one is that we just want people to do what we've told them. You know, we just want them to follow instructions. This is the way the company does this, and I want you to do that. And so I'll give you those instructions, but lots of times I need you to be learning enough so that you're not reading a checklist or you're not looking at the screen. If you're talking with somebody, I want you looking at them, you know, and speaking confidently, not like somebody who's giving a press conference and reading everything and reading it badly. You know, I want you to speak from the heart, speak from your head, and deliver. And then we have the third bucket there is that we want people to perform expertly. There's a little difference between performing expertly and being expert, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it is surely an oversimplification to say these are the 3 primary desired outcomes. But I think it captures a lot of what we're doing, and it'll allow me to make an important point that I suspect you will share in your own feelings. And that is, we could make this open-ended and ask people to try to fill in the chart here about what's the typical strategy, but I don't want to spend too much of our surprising number of minutes doing this. So Christopher, what do people typically do when we just want them to follow instructions?
They provide information.
They do. So, and that makes sense, right? So here's the checklist,
Right.
Here's the guide, here's the manual, use it. What do people do when we want them to remember those instructions and work more freely?
we provide more information, maybe with more emphasis.
With maybe louder.
Yes.
Remember this. You have to remember this, right?
This will be important later.
Right. Oh, shoot. Now, if we want them to be experts, how do we help them with that?
We board them.
I have a feeling you are following instructions by reading the slide. Oh, shoot. But yeah, that's right. We say, okay, now we want you to be able to perform at a higher level. So we're going to give you a lot more information, and we're going to walk you through these stories or whatever. And it seems to me that we have gotten into an information presentation mode. And again, if that were enough, we wouldn't need mentors, we wouldn't need teachers, we wouldn't need people helping us. We also wouldn't need practice and many other things that go into being able to perform expertly. So then the question is, what's an appropriate instructional strategy? And what I'm going to show you here was my first stab at this concept that I'm going to modify after having presented this to a number of audiences and gotten some feedback, their wise feedback, which I think makes this more accurate and better. So if we want people to follow instructions, it seems like, of course, that's what we need to do. If we can present them to the guidelines to people, whether it's fancy, done as a performance support system where you call it up on your mobile device in the midst of doing work on an automobile engine or trying to match a product to an identified customer need or something. There are many situations where providing information is a good solution. And as always, we want the information clear, well organized, accessible, and so forth. So I'm not putting it down. I want to do the simplest thing that really addresses the need, and I think this is it. But if we want people to remember and follow instructions, we need to provide guided practice. You really, I think a really good saying is, when it's time to perform, it's too late to practice. And so we want in our learning programs the opportunities for people to actually practice. I mean, sometimes it may be making a sales pitch in a mirror, or it may be working interactively on a digital platform. But practice is really, really, really important. And not, you could set, I've studied piano for almost my whole life. And I really should have a piano teacher. I don't. I sit and practice and I try to guide myself, but it would be much better for somebody giving me tips, telling me what I'm doing wrong. I'd learn things faster, be much more efficient, and I'd be a much better pianist, I'm sure. But anyway, and then if we want to perform expertly, well, certainly we need practice, but we need challenging practice that simulates a variety of situations, because expertise involves a real expert can look at a new situation that they've never been trained on, never encountered before, and come up with an effective solution, because their level of understanding and their experience allows them to look at a new situation and figure out what's going on and do something really, really appropriate. So that's why we'd like our doctors to be real experts, so that they can look at a situation and say, yeah, this looks like A, but I'm taking into account all this information, your experience, my experience with you as a patient. And I think we have a different diagnosis here and a different treatment. So we'd really like them to be experts. And I thought this was pretty good guide. And so, as I say, presented it to a number of people. And Christopher, what did they point out? What are the two things that they pointed out I wasn't taking into account?
complexity of the task and the risk, both for the individual and for the organization. And
it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Right. I mean, even something that like stop, drop, and roll, it's risky, to the individual if you don't perform it correctly. And when we start expanding that out, that to other things that we would naturally do in our job that have a good deal of risk, just providing information, even if it's kind of paint by numbers, can make people feel pretty uncomfortable and nervous. And you want to make sure that you account for that when you're applying an instructional strategy to it, so that they are confident and ready to perform.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm noticing that I'm sorry, Johnny has to leave, and Paul is going to give me piano lessons.
Yes, we have some piano teachers in the group.
There you go. So,
Yes.
so this is my lucky day. I'm glad we did. First, we'll have to do it remotely somehow.
Yeah, you can do a Zoom or something.
We could do a Zoom.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll tell me why my arpeggios are just not as smooth as I would like them to be. They're just, after all these years, I still feel like I know exactly when my thumb comes down, and I don't want any notes to stand out alone. I want them all smooth. But anyway, you'll want to hear about that. So
there are a few other questions. I don't know when you want to stop and pause for those, but
I wonder if I should just
finish.
Just fill out this chart. I
Yep.
just got one
Sounds
more
good.
little chunk to go,
Okay.
and then I would love to have the questions. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So okay. So as Christopher was saying, it's the complexity or simplicity is in relationship to the learner. So, I don't know, piano, I shouldn't be harping on that, but I've played long enough that I can look at a score and my fingers kind of know what keys to press. I don't think about it as being, well, that's a C natural under my thumb and F sharp under my second finger and so forth. There's not time for that. So what looks complex to me is not going to be the same to a professional pianist or a beginner. So the complexity of the task is in relationship to the person. The riskiness has to do with the task itself, as to whether it could explode or cost a lot of money or whatever. So that has to be taken into account. So when we do that for follow instructions, it still makes sense to provide information if it's simple and safe. So, okay, so if you didn't follow the instruction, it's okay, fix it or something, But if the risk goes up there, making mistakes are costly in some way, or the instructions are, no matter how careful you try to put them together, are not going to be enough until you've applied them a number of times to really feel and see how it works. So that's when we have to borrow from the guided practice that we use in the second bucket for remember and follow instructions. The same thing then is true in remember and follow instructions, that as the risk goes up, we need to follow what we would do a instructional strategy for teaching someone to perform expertly. I think this makes a lot of sense. That even goes way over in that top right-hand corner under follow instructions there, that sometimes even there, we need to challenge people with a variety of situations, let them see the consequences of their actions in the simulation. So it's not just, no, Susan, you're not right on this, or make a judgment and telling them why they're not right. They need to see why it's not right, and then you'll remember. So questions?
Well, there was a conversation going on. Chris had started saying that he or she is building procedural training right now, and the format he or she is trying out is asking the trainee a question and having them find the answers from within the procedures. The idea is that it gives them a purpose for interacting with the procedures rather than just reading them. And then there was some other comments around like, that's good. It's like a scavenger hunt kind of strategy. And then Chris said back, yep, mistakes are just a learning opportunity because you're dealing with something closer than reality rather than a perfect training situation.
Yeah, let me comment on both of
Yep.
those together, which goes, and that's
Yep.
that there's a big difference between understanding the instructions and being able to apply them or to do them. And that's why I say success comes from doing the right thing at the right time. It doesn't come from knowing what the right thing to do is. It comes from doing it, and so it's often a big mistake to assume that if somebody knows what to do, they will do it or can do it. And that's why in almost all cases, we want people actually performing the task. So in developing the knowledge, which can be certainly an important requirement, and doing something like the scavenger hunt to find those elements in the procedure, that could be fun and that can be really, really helpful. But you wouldn't want to stop there. What you really want is people actually applying that procedure and making sure that they can do it. It's just so. Another one of my things I say: employers don't care what you know. They really don't care what you know, but they do care a whole lot what you do, right? And so knowledge and support of performance is important, but the end goal is not knowledge; it's performance.
Yeah, Joe just made a comment and said, will do it equals incentive motivation, can do it equals practice.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I often show Venn diagrams where there's willing and able, and where they overlap, where people are willing and able, there's your success potential. Mm-hmm. Willing has a lot to do with what management does, but training can help people more willing, because if they feel confident in their skills, they'll be a lot more willing to take a chance and do it. So we do take some responsibility in training to help people become more willing. But our primary goal, our first goal, at least in training, is to make sure people have the skill. I think we should ask another poll to see where we want to go, right? Before.
Yeah, sounds good.
Rich, Christopher?
I know what the poll is. Yes.
There it is. There it is.
What would we really like to do next? Do we want to answer some more questions? Would we like to see a demonstration, or move on to the next principle? And my personal favorite, surprise me. This is fun. It's like watching a horse race.
It really is.
I think present the next principle is going to win.
Yeah.
Just barely edging it out, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad we're doing this. And I hope in doing this we're not disappointing people who didn't get their first choice. But
there was another question, Michael. Oh,
yeah,
I just lost it. Oh, there it is. This is from Chris, who we talked about the procedural. He said, how would we get the proof that they can do the right thing? I suppose it's giving them a few scenarios and asking them how they would react and showing the consequences, right?
I was going to say the answer, the best answer to that is to complete this principle.
Okay, well then we'll do that.
But I would say yes, absolutely. If I were teaching a graduate course many times and I got that kind of response, I would pat that person on the back and give them a Twix bar, because I think that's exactly right.
Good.
All right, so next principle then. I would have lost the bet. I would have bet that it was show demonstration, which we'll have time to do, by the way, show some demos. But I'm so glad you're letting me present this, because I think it's so important and it makes things so much easier, and it's so much different from what most people do. I mean, when I hire instructional designers, we have to unlearn them about so many things, and get them to approach design and learning experiences so differently than most are taught. So the solution is to design backwards. So what do people do mostly, typically? Well, they gather all of the content together and they try to figure out, as we used to do, try to figure out a skills hierarchy. That is, what are the most simple, basic things you have to learn? And then you build the hierarchy up, all the way up to the skills that you want people to eventually be able to perform. And you break down all these skills into the simpler parts and make sure that you're kind of ready to take the next step forward. And so you're moving closer and closer to your goal with each one of those levels. And those can all become your modules of instruction, starting from the basics, where hopefully, everybody is in this kind of a diagram, everybody is at least able to stand up without falling over. And then take a step forward, and eventually be able to run and jump. And it's so logical, and so much is written about this. I've done so many skill hierarchies in my life, and I'm not saying that's not a smart thing to do as you're doing this work. But what isn't smart, in my view, is to start designing and developing the learning experiences at the left-hand side here. You're going to need those modules, maybe. What's surprising about this is how often you don't need that one way at the left, or maybe the two or the three at the left. So what works so much better, and it's really easier, and you end up almost inescapably designing richer, better learning experiences if you start by asking your subject matter experts and yourself this big question: what is the last thing in training you want people doing before you release them to their jobs? And if we made this an open question where we took the time to ask, surely some of you would saying, well, taking a post-test or doing something at the end. And that's related. I'll try not to expound on why I think post-tests are worthless, but what I do want them doing, and I think we all want them doing, is we want them performing in as authentic an environment as possible the very tasks we're teaching them to perform, and doing it well, of course. And if they're not doing that and doing that well, then I shouldn't be done with my training. I don't want to ask them questions about how to do it, I have a friend who talks about, who's an excellent cellist, and he said it's easy to teach people to answer questions correctly about how to play a cello. And they can know all of those things, how to hold the bow and so forth. They're not at all ready to play the cello, not at all. But nobody wants to, if you want to be a lawyer, you don't want to start with the history of jurisprudence and all the terminology and famous lawyers of the past and so forth. You want to be practicing law. You want to see yourself in the courtroom, if that's the kind of lawyer you are, or whatever version of law you want to. You want to be doing those tasks. Those are the things that will engage you as a learner, and it fits with your motivation, right? So let's design that opportunity for the learner to perform that task at whatever level they're able to, including proficiency, and including not very well. And after you've built that opportunity, whether it's done in a classroom, I focus a lot on e-learning, but this applies to whatever form of instruction you do. If you give people that opportunity, then you ask yourself, what are the most likely mistakes they're going to make? And then figure out, can I just give them help for that? Or do I need to develop a learning experience just prior to this that will help them with that? And maybe, as I look at those things, these modules of preparation that are going to spill out of this aren't necessarily in the sequence of running left to right, but they're all helps. And so I can put you as a learner into a pretty authentic situation very soon, and then help you channel or modify and improve your performance until you're doing it very well. Now, that isn't always possible. So sometimes you have to have intermediate goals where you perform the same thing, that is backwards. You design the opportunity to perform at that level and then figure out what are the ways to help them do that. But helping them in a task that they can appreciate as something worth learning, rather than a quiz or a test or something, which really just is sort of a measure of how good of an instructor or a program were you. People study for tests and then forget what they learned the next day or two. But if you put them in challenges where they can see the consequences of their mistakes and of their excellent performance, it's meaningful to them and it's memorable, and it motivates them to perform well on the job, not just in training. So it's a very simple concept, and it's not hard to do, except that everybody will be kind of pushing back and say, well, let's go start with the basics. Let's go start with the basics. And you really don't want to do that if you can avoid that.
And I kind of like stopping your chart here to also point out it can lead to a cheaper solution. You know, if you start designing at the rudimentary basics and it turns out that most students or all students don't need that, you've wasted time, energy, and budget on, you know, providing support that really wasn't needed. But you know, in order to get the performances that you want, you need the module on the farthest to the right. And as you start dissecting and work backwards, you've both spent your budget on building an effective one on the right, and only provided just enough experience to get there. Whereas if you had just started over on the left, not only would you be wasting your budget on that first module that wasn't needed, you might run out of your budget before you get to the one farthest on the right. And then you might have wasted all of your budget because you really didn't get to the heart of practicing and supporting the actual performance itself.
Yep. So it's a very practical application of design thinking in kind of a specific process that I find really works well. It's been useful to all of us at Allen Interactions, and just sharing it because it might really work well for you. I hope so. And as I say, it does all those things. It saves time, leads to better learning experience, and so forth. It's a simple concept. For those of you that are not familiar with Elearning Manifesto, and perhaps have some experience that it's maybe seems overwhelming to novices, but it's still worth looking at anyway. The address is down at the bottom right-hand corner, elearningmanifesto.org. This was put together. I was happy to be one of the co-conspirators in putting this together, but as a number of thought leaders in the industry were sort of commiserating that it seemed like e-learning was getting more and more boring day after day after day. People were putting out stuff that was not really even suitable for digital delivery, and it was just terrible. There was a call for what are the guidelines? What should people be doing? And so a team met, and then we reviewed this with lots and lots of people, and now has, I don't know how many signatories to it, Christopher, if you know, but it has hundreds and hundreds of them anyway.
Thousands?
Thousands, yeah. And so what it contrasts is typical e-learning is all focused on the content. It's used some templates that are efficient for authors and so forth, all those things on the left. But what we really want is things that are performance focused and are really meaningful learning experiences, engage the learners, use authentic contexts and so forth. And so it's a set of 8 values. These are just keywords from the 8 values. And then there's 22 principles to guide development of learning materials that we think are really what everyone should be doing at some level. And so we'd love to have you take a look at that as a resource. And if you agree that this is what we all should be striving for and want to pledge to say, I'm going to do my best to get us that, why, you can become a signatory too. And we would love to have you do that. Anything more that I should say about that, Chris, before we take a poll?
We've worked with a number of folks who, in putting together proposals for and budgets for building new training material, that have often referenced the e-learning manifesto, Serious e-learning manifesto, as a description, or at least pointing to some of the key values in here, is they would like to see these in their next learning initiative. And it's something that's nice, that can be referenced back if you want to help get stakeholders on board with how is this next learning experience going to be different from things in the past, and what's the most important thing to focus on when we're thinking about putting capital and people's time towards going through an experience.
There was a question from Julie asking if she thinks this applies to higher ed as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That's what others agreed with that too.
Well,
there's a lot of other questions, but I don't know if you want to get to a poll or if you want to address a few questions.
Well, I was just going to say, we kind of have reached.
I know,
that interesting gap of how long you want this to last. So I would say, why don't we do a poll then for the people who would like to potentially stay on, and ask them, what would they like to do now? We certainly can do demonstrations. We could take questions and answers. Could point you towards resources that you can access later, or someone will tell a bad joke.
There are some people who want to hear it.
All right, so
yeah, I think
the voting could go on while I tell my joke, right? So a priest, a rabbit, and a monk went into a bar, and the rabbit says, "Hi, everybody, I'm a typo."
I'm seeing if anyone's responding in the chat.
That is bad.
People want to
Julie says she loves it. Somebody doesn't get it.
He was saying rabbit.
Rabbit.
With ears.
And the rabbit's saying, I'm a typo.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, several don't get it. This makes me feel a lot better about myself, because I got it, but lots of times I don't get jokes. I'm serious, I don't. So, holy cow, a bad joke. I'm gonna use
it. It looks like demo wins out. Is that right? Just kind of barely, but we do have resources, and for those that can hang on to the end, we will put those up. I think, right?
Yes, for sure.
That puts you on deck for a demo.
Yeah, all right. So we've got a couple demos lined up that might paint a better picture of the different instructional treatments that we talked about in that first matrix of performance objectives to instructional strategies. Roll down here. So this is a quick example of guided practice. And we were pretty fortunate to work with Mary Kay and help them produce Mary Kay University, which is a really interesting suite of learning experiences for folks who would like to become a beauty consultant. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mary Kay beauty consultants, they're independent businesses. So a lot of this is geared towards really an individualized learning path to help newcomers get selling as quickly as possible. And one of the things that they let us in on is that most people who become a beauty consultant with Mary Kay, this is their first sales job ever. So I'm going to scroll down here just to how to overcome booking objections. So we're kind of in the middle of this course, and you know, one of the keys to becoming a successful beauty consultant is having some parties and getting together with several people to kind of go over the different products that are available and to talk and to have a good time. And this is practice really at a basic level on how to overcome objections. So there is a model here, or a formula, and I can take a look at that. It was covered a little bit above. And CARE stands for check to make sure that you understand the objection, acknowledge, let her know that you get what she's saying, use your own words and empathize, respond and address the objection with an honest response, and wait expectantly. Kind of don't jump the gun, let them communicate with you. So from this quick list here, I can choose a couple different objections. I'm too busy, I don't wear makeup, I'm allergic, I wear a different brand, I don't have any money, I don't know anyone or like parties. Interesting. Okay, so we'll pick, I don't wear makeup. Funny enough, it seems to be true. Sorry, Cindy, but I don't like to wear makeup. And so now we as the beauty consultant have an opportunity to respond. Is it because you're allergic to makeup or because you just don't like to wear it? Our second choice here is, I did notice that you don't wear makeup. And our third choice in how to respond is, so you just like the natural look, correct? So I'm gonna just choose one. So you just like the natural look, correct? Yes, I do. So now we get a chance to further respond. And again, we're trying to book an appointment, get an opportunity to share what Mary Kay has to offer. Would you like to enhance your natural features with even just a little bit of makeup? You probably just haven't found the right brand of makeup yet. Wait till you try Mary Kay's products. Or I see, you actually look great without even wearing makeup. In the interest of time, I'll pick this one. And you know, so here I didn't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about the other person on the other end of this conversation and tried to jump too soon to Mary Kay, and that got me kind of into a negative loop here. So I get the opportunity to try this over and over again. This is quick, but it is truly guided practice, and there's lots of things that I like about interactions like these, but what I like the most here is I have the opportunity to do it again. And you know, it's not untypical in a just provide information format where you do it once and then you move on, right? And so this gives me an opportunity to go back and try it over and over and over again. And I think you tell a story about what do the most bright and intelligent and motivated students do when they have an opportunity to go through a course.
So this is not hard to build. You know, it doesn't take a lot of expertise. It can be done very, very quickly. And it is so different from just telling people now, don't be afraid to make sales. A lot of people are going to turn you down, but you know, that's what sales is. So, you know, just stop being fearful of rejection, and just go out there and make those sales, and eventually you'll do fine. This is so different that you get to rehearse ahead of time the things you're going to say. You get to see different feedback messages that are in this. It's a very low level simulation for sure. It's really appropriate to say it's guided practice. Mary Kay has had over 3 million people work through this, and the feedback about the performance and how it's helped people be successful in performing these tasks is just overwhelmingly worth it. I mean, even if this cost many times what it costs to produce, it would still have been a smart investment for the company, but it wasn't expensive. So you're just showing some different paths here.
Yeah, just kind of going through different paths and choosing a few different things. And I've certainly heard you say before that a really well-motivated student will go through something a couple of times to try to get it absolutely perfect. And then they'll go back again and they'll really kind of want to see what happens when they make all the mistakes. How quickly can they make something blow up? And an interface like this that allows you to not only choose what objection you're interested in overcoming, so that you can go after it kind of over and over and over again. You're really giving them the opportunity to spend as much time here as they would like until they are comfortable and ready to move on.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's simple and really effective. It's so different from what most people do, just throwing out the information and here's the manual, here's how to make sales and stuff, and it just pays back to the company and to the individual people in ways that are important, and it fulfills our obligation to use a learner's time effectively. And speaking of time, we did about fill out an hour here anyway, but I appreciate the polls and the direction. I hope you found that at least a little bit fun and helpful, and kept us all involved together here a little bit. We can't let you go without saying Allen Interactions really wants to help, and we have lots of services from strategic analysis to process. We produce, we guide, we teach, we do everything we can to help everybody at whatever level. If you need somebody to augment your team with a special skill, we can do that. If you want to be mentored and work alongside one of our studios as they do a project for your company, but with you, so that you could do it then on your own later, and so on. It's really good. As Christopher said, I've published 8 books, and maybe you can get a free one from a friend or from a library or something. But I'd hope they'd be helpful. And our latest undertaking is the Allen Academy, which we're so excited about. Is so exciting, and I'd love to have you take a closer look at it. It has 4 colleges in it, one that's all focused on design, another one at leadership from way up at the CLO, where we have some of the best CLOs in the country are teaching and helping evaluation, impact study, design of games and game technology and so forth. For all of these, we have certifications. We have elective courses. You can just take one out of the program or go for full certification. And we also have coaching. So each one of the programs includes coaching, so that as you get to the final course in that program, there's somebody that's going to be there to mentor you and work with you for a time after you take the course to help you apply those skills, deal with situations that you might not have encountered before. But we also do coaching just on its own if you need it. So here's some of the faculty that are teaching now. These are really wonderful, smart people. Coming up very soon are some courses. Christopher, coming up very soon.
Yeah. So there's a couple of options here. In May, we're kicking off another full suite of the Allen Certified Instructional Professional, which is a 4-course program that interleaves instructional strategy and theory with practical application in Storyline. And the end goal at the end of the ACIP program is that you've created a real digital learning program that you expect to deliver to some students or employee base. And you've gotten an opportunity to apply some new design methodologies and have actually had your work vetted by a couple of the instructors in the academy to make sure that it is as effective as it could possibly be. And then we're also excited to have an elective starting on May 6th from Clark Quinn on mobile learning design and strategy. And that's a standalone elective. And both are enrolling now. And then later here, before the spring is out, we'll have dates for Clark Aldridge's new elective on creating short simulations.
Yeah, quick, easy sims. He's so clever at ways to do that. So yeah, those will be helpful too, I think. And, you know, again, we'd like to help. If you come up with a design and don't know how to build it, we can show you how to build it, or we can build it for you. Whatever you need, right? Right, yes, Carrie?
That's right. We're here to help.
So we all thank you. We all thank you. Hope you'll go to our website. Hope you'll give us feedback. Hope that there was something in here that you'd like to share with one of your peers or supervisors, or something you'd like to apply.
I think
I really hope. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Nope. Sorry, interrupt. You're done. People really liked the backwards design concept, and I think it validated for them that they're doing that. Or, I think they're doing it already, but it was validation that they're in the right direction, doing the right thing. So yeah, and people liked the polls. People liked the polls, the poll approach too. A lot of really great comments. People found value in this. So yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing this information today. And everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.